clear me up.
Good, I might screw up. Hi, my name is Dan, and I taught a crosser class. Sorry, the first one I want to do is in isolation, so I'm going to start over. Hi, my name is Dan. I taught Intro to Isolations here at Wildfire. So an isolation is a different style of spinning, where instead of the center rotation being at your hand, the center rotation moves to the midpoint of the string. So in that way, your hand and the head of the poi trace the same circle. So an isolation looks like this. So in this introductory class, I taught how to get started doing an isolation. One way that you can start to get used to the different feeling of the pull on your poi is to hold your hand straight out, pretend you're stirring a pot. So you'll be moving your hand in a circle. And if you look straight down on this, you can kind of see that the poi is moving in the opposite side of the circle that your hand is. So that's a beginning thing you can do just to learn how it feels. The next thing you can try is do a little bit of a pendulum back and forth. But then while you're doing this, you want to rock your hand back and forth in the opposite direction that the poi is going. So it kind of feels like you're leaning back and like driving a lowrider car or something. But you can do this. You want to try and keep the center of the string exactly where it is in the middle. And if it helps, you can grab it and kind of do this back and forth, just to get the feel of how it's going to be when your hand and the poi are traveling on opposite sides of the same circle. So if you feel comfortable doing this with your hand here, try taking your hand off, keeping it right in the middle. Eventually try going a little bit further. You'll notice that once you get horizontal, you're going to feel kind of like a drop to the poi, so you don't want to go too far, but we'll work on that next. So once you feel comfortable doing this, next thing you're going to try and do is go all the way around the circle once. So from doing this, try and just give your poi a little bit more momentum, and spin it around once, and then try to come to a stop if you can. You don't have to do it continuously. You can do this, try and do it again, try and do it again. You can either do it from this pendulum back and forth, and try and do it that way, or if you find it easier, you can go from regular spinning, and at the point where the head of the poi is at the top, then try and move your hand up in a circle while the poi falls down. Kind of like this. So when you feel comfortable doing this again and again and again, it'll take a lot of practice, but eventually you'll be able to get a little bit of an isolation. You can try that in both directions. You can try that with both hands. And then ultimately, you can try doing two at the same time. You can do them in same direction, same time. You can do them in same direction, split time. You can do them in opposite direction, same time. Or opposite direction, split time. That one's a little squirrely on me. So you might say, all right, well, what do I do with these now? Because I'm probably not just going to be spinning and then just stop and do this for a while. It's going to look kind of weird. So here are some basic moves. Here are some basic moves that you can use isolations in. So one would be a butterfly. So while doing a butterfly, you can kind of just pull your poi out a little bit and then do an isolated beat or two and then go back in. So the full way that would look would be isolation and back in. You can do a couple more beats if you want and then go back in. But by doing this, you don't have to do isolations continuously over and over and over again. You can just throw them in to an existing move just to make them look slightly better. Another move that you can add an isolation to is the weave. So I'm going to do this from two different angles. First, I'm going to show that by doing a regular 3-beat weave, when I get to the side here, right here, I'm going to separate my hands slightly so they're locked out. Right here. And then when the poi come right next to the other handle, I'm going to turn it over by just isolating it a little bit. So that'll look like this. Once I do that, I then have my other hand over, and I can switch to the other side. So on both sides, it'll look like this. Again, this is a move where you're doing an isolation for part of it, but not the entire time. It's a good way to start using isolations and incorporating them into your spinning. But one nice thing to note is that once you can do isolations, you can then do pretty much any move fully isolated if you just practice a lot. If you were to do an isolated weave, it would look something like this. Kind of awkward at first, but you can eventually get it to look a little better. If you did a fully isolated thread the needle, it would look like this. And you can even do isolated reels. So instead of just doing a normal reel, you can kind of move your hand in these circles, or move it in the inside planes as well. The last one that I touched upon in class was the isolated buzzsaw. Everyone seems to like that one. So normally, you just do a buzzsaw like this. But in this one, you're going to want your head of one poi to be right by the hand. And then you're just going to pretend that you're cranking a bicycle with your hands. So it's going to look kind of like this. From the other side. Kind of like that. If you're not as good as I am, it may look a little sloppy. But if you practice enough, you can eventually isolate it in both directions. That looks really cool if you can do it continuously, but I can't. So that's what we went over in the class. Mostly just introduction to isolations. So you can use these in any kind of spinning, and then you can essentially learn twice as many moves as you already know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now I have another class to do.
Okay, cool.
How was that time-wise?
No, that was great. That was just over 5 minutes, so that was perfect.
Man, it felt so much shorter than that. Ugh. All right, actually, why doesn't somebody else go while I think about what I'm going to talk about from my other
Okay,
class?
great.
My class, next class starts in about 10 minutes.
Okay.